the Biden administration is preparing to announce another military aid package for Ukraine this week. 3 U.S. officials telling NBC News the package expected to be similar in size to the $800 million one announced last week. But this new package is expected to include more weapons and tens of thousands more artillery rounds, which will be critical to the fighting in Ukraine's east.
President, will you be sending more artillery to Ukraine?
Yes.
We're doing the best we can to focus on, A, the kinds of capabilities we know they need and that they say they want and are using. B, secondary to that, to try to get them systems that they don't need a lot of startup time for, that they can put in the field almost immediately.
Joining us now, U.S. Undersecretary for Political Affairs, Ambassador Victoria Nuland. Madam Ambassador, thanks for being with us this morning. I know the Pentagon and that aid package is not your turf, so I'll ask you about diplomacy here. Is there any going on behind the scenes right now? How can Russia, how can Vladimir Putin be trusted in the least to actually negotiate some kind of an end to this war?
Well, good to be with you this morning. Both Russia and Ukraine are remaining at the negotiating table, now not in person but by video. But by all accounts, it is highly cynical on Putin's side. He's still insisting on virtual complete capitulation by Ukraine. The Ukrainians have made clear that they are going to fight for every inch of their country as they are fighting for all of our freedom in the face of this brutal dictator. But the talks are continuing. They're just not getting very far.
And from the American side, what more pressure can be placed upon Putin's regime? Obviously, the sanctions have had an impact. Mika was just telling us about the cratering of the economy there. But it doesn't seem to deter Vladimir Putin, who has a larger dream, a fantasy perhaps in mind here. So what else is on the table at stake?
Well, you're absolutely right that Putin doesn't care about his own people. He's been in power for 20 years, and the country out in the countryside has just gotten poorer and poorer. One of your reports made clear that these Russian soldiers, who largely come from the hinterlands of Russia, the Rust Belt, are showing up in Ukrainian villages and finding, full grocery stores and full pharmacies. And they can't believe the quality of life is so much better in Ukraine. And this is the result of the fact that Putin doesn't care about his own people. That said, there are two things we will continue to do. First, to provide the kinds of weapons that the Ukrainians need for this fight. As you heard Kirby say, as the fight changes, the types of weapons we need to get them, along with our allies, have to change, and we are making those adjustments as they speak to us about what they need. But we also have to continue to up the pressure on Putin and on Russia and on the richest Russians so that they will pressure Putin. And, I do believe that the sanctions are beginning to be better understood by the Russian people. I mean, none of the difficulties that they've been having, whether it's getting flights out of the country, whether it's getting mortgage rates at interest rates anybody can afford, whether it's finding Western products or Western technology on the shelves of their stores, were a problem before the war in Ukraine, not to mention the thousands and thousands of Russian body bags that are going to start coming home.
So, Julia, to the point that Secretary Nuland just raised, that Vladimir Putin cares very little about the Russian people. Vladimir Putin, sitting isolated, paranoid, insecure in Moscow, what would lead us to believe, Julia, that he would negotiate anything sort of a peace agreement right now? Is he not thinking that this is all about him and his world that he has created around himself? Julia?
I think Ambassador Nuland has it. Yes?
No. Hi. How are you?
Hi.
Go ahead, Julia.
I think Ambassador Nuland has it exactly right. Russia under Putin has been in the kind of the old Russian Soviet tradition where the state doesn't exist to serve the people exist to serve the state, and they are basically just bodies that are at the service of the government, and the government can do whatever it wants with them, as we're seeing in Ukraine, where they're just becoming basically cannon fodder for Putin's imperialist aims. I do think that from Putin's perspective, it's really only been less than 8 weeks into the war, and he has set out very extreme aims that he wants to achieve in Ukraine. And you have people on state media and very, very publicly pushing him to say that, you know, do not back down from these aims. We want nothing short of total victory over Ukraine. We want to dismantle Ukraine. We want to exist the idea of Ukraine and the idea of a separate Ukrainian nationality from people's minds and just from reality. So it's hard to imagine that he stops just at the Donbass or that he wants to negotiate. I think it's still, unfortunately, too soon for him to feel like he's lost this war, that he needs to negotiate or needs to cede anything.
Ambassador Nuland, just a final question for you. Will there be a high-level visit, U.S. visit to Ukraine? And also, I can't stop thinking about the people in the steel factory in Mariupol and what will become of them, and is there no hope?
Well, first, on a visit, we are continuing to look at what makes sense. I don't have anything to announce today. You can understand that the Ukrainians are fighting a very, very hot war, and it's important that our support be directly in response to what they need to fight that war. That said, we are talking to Ukrainian leaders at every level every day to assess what they need. And listen, with regard to the situation in Mariupol, it is just speaks to the incredible brutality of this war that Putin is prosecuting, and to the fact that he does not care about human life. He is turning Ukraine into rubble, and he is turning Russia into a prison. And this is all about his imperial ambition. I will say, to Julia's point, though, that, you know, he's already had to scale back his war aims. You know, he told his commanders to be in Kyiv in 5 days, and they failed in Kyiv. So, you know, Ukrainian bravery, Ukrainian courage on display in Mariupol, but also on display all over Ukraine's east with the support of U.S. and our allies. They are standing tall for their own freedom, but also for all of our freedom.
Undersecretary for Political Affairs, Ambassador Victoria Nuland, thank you. Julia Ioffe, thank you as well.